On our show Tuesday night, MTG, Clan Mom as we call her, earlier in the day, called 3 of her fellow Republicans pro-pedophile for supporting Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination. She tweets. After she saw it, she tweeted, ABC contacts my employer. This threat of violence against me by Jimmy Kimmel has been filed with the Capitol Police. She called the police. After processing the fact that someone called the police on me, believe it or not, this has never happened to me in my life. I tweeted back, I wrote, "Officer, I'd like to report a joke."
Marjorie Taylor Greene's 911 call wasn't just absurd, it revealed something bigger. Dive into the moment Jimmy Kimmel's joke became a political storm, pulling Trump into the spotlight and raising questions about the power of humor in democracy. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What happens when a politician hears a joke and takes it so literally they end up calling the police? Enter Marjorie Taylor Greene, no stranger to controversy, who somehow decided Jimmy Kimmel's joke during his late night show was a 911 emergency.
This afternoon, she wrote, "You weren't joking. You hide your misogyny and your racism behind your jokes on ABC. This was a dog whistle to the violent left to assault me or worse, and you're," misspelled "you're," of course. Well, that's nice. She thinks I have fans. I guess that's good. But now listen, not only don't I condone death or any kind of threats against anyone, especially since I get dozens of them a week myself, this woman, you may remember, she's the one who endorsed fringe conspiracy theories and repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians. Now she's dialing 911 because she got made fun of.
Yes, this actually happened. Let's rewind for a second. Kimmel, referencing Will Smith's now infamous Oscars slap, made a joke about wanting someone to slap Greene for her fiery comments in Congress. Now, most people would shrug off a late-night jab like that. Politicians especially are known for developing thick skin when it comes to comedians. But Greene? Oh no, she went a completely different route. Rather than ignoring it or firing back with a witty retort, she called the police and tweeted about it. Because nothing says I'm tough and can handle public scrutiny like immediately dialing 911 over a joke.
If she's gonna report me to the police, if that's how she wants to play it, I'll report you right back. And I won't go to the police, I'll go to the Justice League. Note to Jimmy Kimmel, not only would Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband make quick work of you, but Rep. MTG herself would make quick work of you. Kimmel would not last too long if he were interested in engaging in unprovoked, terrible violence against this Congresswoman. Keep wearing a mask while Senator Cruz replied to this, that was not written to him. Bizarre. 535 members of Congress can attend the State of the Union without wearing masks. Still not good enough for Hollywood.
But here's the kicker. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene we're talking about. The self-proclaimed warrior against cancel culture, liberal snowflakes, and any perceived attack on free speech. This is the same person who's argued against protections for Capitol Police, even going so far at times as to downplay their role during high-profile incidents like, oh, the January 6th riots. Yet here she is, essentially turning to authority figures she's often criticized, all because a comedian poked fun at her. The irony is thicker than Kimmel's fake apologetic tone. Now imagine this as a slapstick comedy scene. Picture a politician storming off to their phone, dialing 911, and trying to explain to a confused dispatcher that, yes, they're calling because a guy on TV made a joke. It's almost cartoonish. Someone trips over a banana peel, a laugh track plays, and in the end, the audience wonders what they missed. Except, no, this wasn't a comedy special, it was real life.
Hey, you know, all these crazy people in Congress, all of these low IQ individuals in Congress right now, there's one guy who's responsible for that, and that's Donald Trump.
First, new evidence tonight that we, you, the American people, all of us, we were all lied to.
Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election.
We were lied to by Joe Biden.
Obama, amnesty. Amnesty, Obama, amnesty.
What kind of president needs a note card to answer a basic and predictable question.
Public figures like Greene get ridiculed all the time. It's part of the deal. They're in the spotlight, and with that comes criticism. And naturally, jokes. A-listers from Hollywood to Washington, D.C. have faced far harsher jabs than Kimmel's slap quip. Obama had entire books dedicated to cartoons mocking his ears. Bush, well, you remember all the shoe-throwing jokes, but Greene's 911 freakout really stands out, not just for its absurdity, but for how predictable it feels, given her history. This is the same person known for spreading bizarre conspiracy theories, from the dangers of cloud seeding to those wild accusations about PBS and NPR being brainwashing tools. It seems Greene responds to everything, big or small, with the same exaggerated energy, and this call was just another entry in her greatest hits collection.
He's been sending very cleverly coded messages, narrating what he sees maybe more clearly than anyone, the brazen and unchecked hypocrisy we're being bombarded with every day.
We're going to beat this coronavirus, or whatever you want to call it, and we're going to beat it soundly.
And Biden's lies are so bad that even the Washington Post is calling him out for his lies.
The Washington Post new report out today.
Of course, Jimmy Kimmel didn't let it slide. I mean, why would he? Late night hosts thrive on this kind of material. Greene's decision to cry wolf over a punchline basically handed him a full week's worth of content on a silver platter. Kimmel didn't hide his disbelief at her response, calling her insane for essentially demanding police involvement in what was obviously satire. His jokes practically wrote themselves. "Officer, I'd like to report a joke. Is there a police code for this? JOK maybe." But beyond the irony or the humor, Greene's reaction does leave us asking a bigger question. Why would someone whose entire brand is about toughness and resilience flip out so spectacularly over a comedian's wisecrack? Greene portrays herself as a fighter, someone who says what others won't, no matter the backlash. Yet here she was, running to law enforcement about a joke. Not only does this clash with her tough guy persona, but it also just looks weak, like she expects to dish it out, but can't deal with even a fraction of what she gives. There's also the wider context to think about. Most public figures know better than to react this way. If anything, history's proven that outrage, particularly from a politician, only adds fuel to the comedic fire. For comedians, reactions like this are the jackpot. The more a target squirms, the funnier the joke becomes. Greene's response didn't silence Jimmy Kimmel, it amplified him. Suddenly, late night shows, Twitter threads, and even news publications all had something new to roast. And guess who was at the center of it all? So we've got Greene calling the cops over late night comedy and Kimmel laughing all the way to the ratings bank. But it doesn't stop there. Why? Because enter stage left, Donald Trump. Yes, somehow Trump managed to insert himself into this mess, turning what was already a bizarre incident into a full-blown circus. What is it about humor, especially the kind directed at certain public figures, that makes them react so explosively? If Greene's meltdown set things in motion, Trump's involvement made sure the story spiraled out even further. But let's save that for a moment. The point here, comedy did what comedy does. It poked, and Greene's over-the-top reaction wasn't just a bad PR move, it handed comedians even more ammunition. The call may have been intended to make the joke stop, but instead, it became the centerpiece of the joke itself. Now, how Trump managed to weave himself into all this is something else entirely. Let's talk about that next. Why would Donald Trump, the man who brags about being the best at comebacks, feel the need to jump into a feud over a late-night joke? Well, believe it or not, here we are. In a move nobody really saw coming, Trump stepped up to defend Marjorie Taylor Greene after Jimmy Kimmel took aim at her. Calling Kimmel a failed comedian, Trump didn't just take a swipe at the late-night host. He framed the joke as part of some grand leftist conspiracy to silence conservatives. Yes, because when Jimmy Kimmel mocks your buddy on national TV, it clearly means that late-night comedy hosts are working together to overthrow the right. Forget the Illuminati, it's the comedians who are the real masterminds here. If you're scratching your head trying to figure out why Trump felt the need to involve himself in all this, you're not alone. On the surface, it seems trivial, just another one-liner aimed at a public figure who probably deserved it. But for Trump, this wasn't just about a joke, it was another opportunity to frame himself, and Greene by extension, as the eternal victims of a liberal media out to get them. This is a man who once declared that Alec Baldwin's impersonation of him on Saturday Night Live wasn't just bad acting, but practically a hate crime. Trump has always had an oddly personal relationship with humor, treating it less like a punchline and more like an uppercut, and this time, it was no different. What's so ironic though is that while Trump loves to dish out his own insults, and let's face it, he gets pretty creative with the nicknames, he absolutely cannot handle being on the receiving end. It's the classic playground bully vibe. They'll pull your hair, trip you, and throw your lunchbox across the yard. But the moment someone else says something back, full-blown tantrum. Kimmel seemed to notice this too, responding to Trump's criticism with a simple tweet. "I'm just glad to know I'm living rent-free in your head, Donald." That's textbook late-night roasting right there. Short and sharp enough to hit where it hurts. But we've seen this dynamic play out before. Trump's sensitivity to jokes isn't exactly breaking news. It's a pattern. Remember when Seth Meyers roasted him at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner? Some say that was the moment Trump decided to run for president. Apparently, instead of laughing it off like everyone else, he sat there visibly seething. And don't forget his public spats with comedians like Rosie O'Donnell, who's been a target of his jabs and Twitter rants for years. The man who claims to be the king of comebacks can't seem to let a single joke about him slide. And really, this makes his reaction to the Kimmel Greene fiasco all the more fascinating. What does it say about a politician, and a former president no less, when late-night TV hosts can goad them into a public response? Trump's leap to Greene's defense might seem noble if it weren't so transparently about keeping himself in the media spotlight. Instead of helping her look strong, it really did the opposite. Now, instead of seeing Greene as a fierce, no-nonsense leader who can hold her own, people see her as someone whose ego is as fragile as that glass you definitely shouldn't have put in the dishwasher. And that's really what ties Trump and Greene together here. The sensitivity. Both figureheads love to project an image of power, strength, and resilience. Greene often positions herself as the tough-talking defender of conservative America, while Trump, well, he's built his entire brand on being the guy who wins at everything. But humor? It's like kryptonite for both of them. When they're laughed at, it's not just an insult, it's a threat to their carefully constructed personas. And that's why comedians like Kimmel keep hitting that same note over and over. It's not because Trump or Greene are special, they're just consistent. Every time a joke lands, the reaction becomes the punchline. And here's where it gets even funnier. Trump's angry rhetoric about Kimmel being a failed comedian and part of a leftist conspiracy only added more fuel to the comedy fire. If he'd said nothing, the joke probably would have disappeared after a day or two. But instead, his outrage turned it into a multi-day news cycle with Kimmel, other comedians, and pretty much everyone on Twitter piling on. It's like screaming at a bonfire and wondering why the flames get higher. But analyzing Trump's reaction also points us to something bigger. This isn't just about comedy. It's about how humor holds power accountable. Jokes aren't just entertainment. They challenge egos, expose contradictions, and make people think. For someone like Trump, who's built a political empire on looking invincible, a joke cuts through the facade. It's why late-night hosts like Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, and Trevor Noah resonate with audiences who see these politicians for what they are. Very thin-skinned people trying very hard to seem otherwise. Of course, this feud with Kimmel isn't over. Comedians rarely let these moments go to waste, and with Trump pouring his trademark outrage all over this story, there's no doubt Kimmel will find a way to escalate it. The joke that sparked this whole thing wasn't just a one-off. It's become the gift that keeps on giving. Trump set out to defend a fellow thin-skinned politician, but instead, he handed comedians everywhere a golden opportunity to amplify their criticism. So if the original issue was a joke about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now Trump finds himself dragged into it, what does that say about the role of humor in holding powerful people accountable? Maybe it's not the jokes they hate, they're used to criticism after all, but the fact that humor does what nothing else can. It makes them look ridiculous. And in the world of politics, nothing's deadlier than losing face. On that note, this story isn't just about the laughs, it's about why those laughs matter. But that's where we're headed next. Can a joke really threaten democracy, or does it actually protect it? That's the big question here. The whole Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jimmy Kimmel, Donald Trump saga may seem like just another political sideshow, but it opens the door to a much bigger conversation. Humor, especially in politics, has always been much more than just entertainment. It's a way to critique power, call out hypocrisy, and hold leaders accountable. Some experts even call it a political pressure valve, helping people release tension while critically examining those in charge. But when politicians themselves seem incapable of taking a joke, it raises questions. Are they undermining the very freedoms that humor protects? Or are they just proving how much satire gets under their skin? Think about it. Political satire is like the modern version of the medieval court jester. Back then, kings surrounded themselves with yes men, but the jester? Their job was to poke fun and speak truth to power in ways no one else could. Sure, they dressed in silly hats and jingled bells, but the jokes often carried sharper commentary than anything said around the royal table. Today, comedians like Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, and Trevor Noah are the jesters for our democracy. A late-night joke may seem like a simple quip designed to get a laugh, but these jokes also pack a punch. They highlight inconsistencies in public figures, cut through polished talking points, and expose glaring hypocrisies. Take Kimmel's joke, for example. In principle, it was about Greene's abrasive behavior in Congress, but in execution, it became a satire of that behavior. A quick jab, yes, but it pointed to something deeper, the double standard of promoting a tough persona while reacting this dramatically to a joke. And that's the brilliance of comedy. It takes something complex, like political contradictions, and explains it in 2 sentences that everyone gets. Just like a jester in the king's court, comedians remind us of the absurdities we might not even notice otherwise. Now, humor doesn't just entertain, it challenges. And it's this challenge to power that seems to strike a nerve with folks like Greene and Trump. For them, jokes aren't harmless, they're threatening. Greene's decision to call 911 and Trump framing Kimmel as a failed comedian didn't happen because of one joke. It happened because jokes like these push back against their carefully curated images. Greene wants people to see her as a fearless defender of conservative values, and Trump, well, he's built his entire legacy on being the alpha male who's winning at literally everything. But laughter, that throws a wrench into it. The moment people start laughing at someone, they lose control of their image. When Trump lashes out at satire, it's not just about bruised feelings, it's about trying to reassert control over a narrative where he's the punchline. And here's where things start getting ironic. Neither Greene nor Trump seems to realize that their overreactions only make them look worse. The outrage, calling 911, the public statements, all of it gives comedians more material. It's like throwing chum into the water while yelling, "Why are there so many sharks around me?" Every time Greene or Trump complains about satire, it immediately gets turned into more jokes. The original problem, the jab from a comedian, fades, but their reaction keeps the story alive. Kimmel and others almost don't have to write new jokes anymore because the absurdity of their responses becomes the entire punchline. But it's not just laughs driving this dynamic. Jokes are a critical part of free speech. Political satire doesn't stop wars or write laws, but it does spark conversations. For some people, jokes on shows like Kimmel's or Colbert's are their first introductions to issues they might not otherwise care about. Humor simplifies the complicated and makes it accessible to everyone. It's not about tearing down leaders for the sake of being mean, but about questioning them in a way that sticks in people's minds. As someone once said, humor gets to places that anger never could, and that's why it's so effective. What's fascinating here is how Greene's and Trump's reactions reveal their biggest insecurity, public perception. For all their posturing, their strongest weapon has always been their ability to control how they're viewed. Greene thrives on being seen as tough and unshakable. Trump feeds off his image as charismatic and untouchable, but humor doesn't care about their spin rooms or propaganda machines. It flattens everything. A good joke can take a complex issue, like Greene's hypocrisy or Trump's fragility, and condense it into something that fits into a late-night segment. That's the power of comedy. It strips away the spin and reminds people that powerful figures are, in fact, human and deeply flawed. So who actually won in the Kimmel-Greene-Trump triangle? Spoiler alert, it wasn't Greene or Trump, it was the comedians. Greene and Trump may have had the platforms, but humor won the messaging war. Their reactions practically gift-wrapped punchlines for late-night writers across the board. It's moments like these where comedians do their best work, because it's not just about making people laugh. It's about exposing the vulnerabilities of those at the top and showing audiences the cracks in their carefully constructed facades. But here's a twist worth noting. Incidents like these also blur political lines. In a strange way, Greene and Trump's shared sensitivity highlights how fragile even seemingly dominant figures can be when the jokes don't go their way. That's where the contradictions in political theater really shine. Two larger-than-life personas united by their inability to handle a punchline. And while alliances like this might be entertaining, they also tell us something deeper about ego, power, and why humor remains such a powerful tool. Now, let's look at how this chaotic feud exposed an even bigger truth. This feud wasn't really about one joke. It revealed something far funnier and more telling. At its heart, it's about thin-skinned politicians whose egos crumble under the weight of satire. Jimmy Kimmel's quip wasn't just a one-liner. It was a reminder of how humor pokes holes in power's facade. As the saying goes, in the battle between comedians and thin-skinned politicians, the laugh always seems to belong to those who can take a joke. If comedy can rattle powerful figures this much, maybe it's doing exactly what it's meant to do. So should leaders learn to laugh or keep grabbing their phones?